double verse in terms of being out here and experiencing show livestock, but also seeing the commercial side of things. And with that, the young lady that comes out here, in my mind, just did a tremendous job of being so well versed in terms of her projects were very, very high quality, and she knew a lot about them, knew everything down to the basics incredibly well. Young man that comes out here and just did a really, really good job of keeping those lambs very consistent there in terms of their type and their kind. He talked to me and said that they were so consistent there in terms of their weight, and he actually started out with so many more and was able to work his way down with that. Maybe I just didn't have the same kind of level of quality there. Maybe just wasn't as well versed in a couple of areas, but two tremendous young individuals with tremendous projects. Big round of applause for them, if you will. Congratulations.
Our champion feeder pin is Ava Greiner, and the reserve is Cameron Renner. We also have in our ring today our 2023 Washington County Fair Queen, Taylor Bartholomew. She's the daughter of Scott and Michelle Bartholomew. Next year she will be a senior at Washington High School, and she is a Franklin Cubs 4-H Club member. And then we have Greta Siren, who is Miss Congeniality. She's the daughter of Catherine and Jason Siren. She will be a senior next year at Mid-Prairie, and she is representing the Mid-Prairie FFA and the Dutch Creek Flyers 4-H. So these girls will be our ribbon distributors today. Our first class today will be the purebred ewe lambs. Caden Sprouse and Javen Davis.
get into our Purebred ewe show, and 2 ewes that are very different there in terms of their type and their kind, and I like both of them for differing advantages in which they have. For me, I'm going to side with the rounder bodied, wider caged individual who's better there in terms of the progression of her width. I think this ewe is really good there in terms of her top line balance and symmetry, one who's really stout there in terms of her feature down low, and gets out with more than enough athleticism and flexibility there. And for me, now, is she perfect? No, she's not. That's where the U and 2, I think, actually corrects her. She's better in terms of her underlying balance. She's shorter and shallower there in terms of her blade and her chest. And I really like this one in terms of her hip construction and her length and levelness of hip. With that, I think that U maybe just gets a bit more open there in terms of her breastplate. Doesn't come with the same kind of genuine horsepower. Step in behind that U, and I'd like to square her up there on her right hock. But still, a very high quality class of 2 very good individuals. Congratulations. Big round of applause for them.
Our champion purebred ewe was shown by Caden Sprouse, and reserve was Javen Davis. The banners this year for Caden is sponsored by Garmin Show Supply, and the reserve is by Kevin and Danielle Schultz. I forgot to mention the feeder pin. The champion banner was sponsored by Jerry and Mindy Driscoll, and the reserve was sponsored by Triple D Farms and Steve and Pam Davis family. We appreciate all of our wonderful sponsors. Speaking of that, as you will notice that most of our kids are wearing t-shirts that are sponsored by Federation Bank, and so we appreciate Federation Bank and giving their sponsorship of the t-shirts. For those of you that might have just arrived, our judge this year is Nate Berkshire. He is currently living in Illinois. He next year is going to be judging the coach for the University of Illinois judging team, originally from California. So again, we want to welcome Nate to our ring.
Another very high quality class, and maybe one that just doesn't come out here and just grab the attention. Maybe one of them that just doesn't come out here and become an outlier, but I think that's because they all have high quality parts and pieces that I want to get into with that. I think the ewe that combines the most good is the young man's all-white ewe that surfaces. One who's really stout there in terms of her feature, dead level in terms of her top line, and yet I still like this one in terms of her chest and her blade. I think that she gets out here and flexes her hind leg the way that I want her to, and yet still has more than enough touch, more than enough tone and muscularity for me. I like that sheep quite good. Now the sheep that maybe throws a couple of wrenches in things is the ewe that comes out here in second. One that from a proportionality and balance standpoint is really, really good. She's very good there in terms of her foot size, her feature, and you can tell the young man spent a lot of time at home really working on leg shag and hair. Very good job in that aspect. But she's so much better than even our class winners, her rear rib and flank construction. Maybe get critical on that ewe. She's just a bit pushing the edge in terms of her full rib, a bit soft there in that aspect. Doesn't have the same kind of progression of width and becomes more erect there in terms of her spine. No doubt, the ewe that comes out here in third is the genuine source of power. This ewe is crazy there in terms of her back shape, one who's square back to her loin and broad about her upper hip. Really like this ewe there in terms of her rib shape with that. Maybe just not as unique there in terms of the way that her breastplate sits in her. That ewe wants to become shorter and rounder out of her hip and set her hind leg outside of her skeleton. Nothing wrong with the basic function of the ewe that comes out next. That's one who's really smooth and silky there in terms of her look, very attractive from the side. That ewe to me is just too flat there in terms of her body shape, too plain in terms of her muscularity and texture. I'd like to change her in her underline. Dappled up ewe that rounds out the class. As shapely and hard touching as any of them, would like to reconstruct that one off either end of her skeleton, but really a high quality class. Congratulations.
Winning that class was Austin Black. Reserve was Caden Houston. So going top down in your sheet, it's 5, 3, 1, 2, 4. I also want to mention that Caden Houston, who's our reserve in second place, him and his sister Adeline won the Sheep Award, Special Project Sheep Award. They received it in the 2022 awards night. They excelled in personal sheep projects, learning workshop, and leadership experiences. So we need to congratulate Adeline and Caden Houston for their Sheep Project Award.
Another good class with a logical class winner. I feel like this ewe just comes really opened up in her body shape. One who's good in her progression of width, yet is sleek and attractive there in terms of her neck. And in my mind, she's the most angular and flexible off either end of her skeleton. Really like that ewe that surfaces. Ewe that comes out here in two. The biggest and stoutest there in terms of her feature. One who's really shapely and hard there in terms of her back shape. For me, this ewe just gets a bit more vertical about the angle of her shoulder and knee. Maybe just becomes a bit more erect there in terms of her spine and doesn't collect with the same kind of silhouette and pattern. Ewe that rounds out the class. Maybe one of the more angular, flexible, looser lower skeleton ewes that comes out here within this set with that. That's the flattest, narrowest gauge female who needs to be altered there in terms of her lower body balance, but still a very high quality ewe who's flexible there in terms of her hind leg. Congratulations.
Showing first in that class was Morgan Lichty, and second was Bryn Conrad. So going down was 3, 2, 1. We will now be showing for champion and reserve white and speckled face commercial breeding ewe.
Big round of applause for the exhibitors out here. Tremendous job. I know it's early on in the day, but I'm getting awfully excited. I feel the quality of stock out here has been really, really good. And with that, I think the kids out here are excellent. I'm going to be short, I'm going to be sweet. To me, the class that was the hardest to differentiate the quality between was the first one. So the young man right here will be our champion. Young man that was second will be your reserve. Congratulations.
Our champion was Austin Black, and reserve was Caden Houston. We currently have in the ring our black-faced commercial breeding ewe, Class 1. We want to thank KCTC for their generous gift of live streaming all the shows. The link is listed on the show program, so you can tune in for other shows this week. We appreciate their generous support. Families and friends around the world get to enjoy this year. We can enjoy this show again by following the link at the top of the show program to see all the previous recorded 2022 Washington County Fair livestock shows on the KCTC channel. If you have any friends and family from around the state or in other states that are actually watching, please have them text you and come up here and tell me who might be watching, and we'll see how far and wide this is going.
two very high quality ewes, but for me, the young man surfaces rather handily, start from the ground up. Big-footed, stout-featured kind of a female who comes at you opened up in terms of her chest and knee. She's great there in terms of her progression of width, yet get off to the side of her. Man, that thing is short-bladed, she's shallow, she's proportional and offers an incredibly high-quality look there from the side. I really like that sheep. Congratulations, young man. No hate on the young lady's blue sheep up next, because that ewe actually grabs and flexes with more ease there in terms of her hock. I think this ewe is awesome there in terms of her body shape, really opened up to the center portion of her cage, and yet still comes together with balance from the side. In relation to the young man's ewe ahead of her, this ewe's just a bit longer there in terms of her blade and chest, maybe not as unique there in terms of her upper hip construction. The ewe that comes out here in 3 from the side is very picturesque. One who ties her neck high out of the top side of her blade, one who's big-footed, stout-featured, and then yet still maintains her top-line balance, still is long and level there in her hip. Get off to the side of this ewe, that's where I'd maybe like to see a couple things change. Just in terms of her lower body balance, back through her rear rib and flank, that ewe out of the set out here is the flattest and narrowest gauged as well. Nothing wrong with the young man's ewe that comes out next from a basic breeding standpoint. She covers the basics of body, build, and spread, and yet still grabs with as much genuine spread out of the backside of her shoulder as any. But in relation to her contemporaries, this ewe is frailest in there in terms of her feature, reads the plainest and most forgettable there from the side, but still a very high quality ewe to round out the class. Congratulations to those exhibitors.
Winning that class is Garrett Greiner. Second place was Emma Greiner. So going down on your program, it's 3-1-4-2. I also want to take the time to thank our sheep superintendents, Ted Greiner and Bridget Niebel. They are wearing the red shirts, so make sure that you thank them. We also have a lot of other helpers that are helping behind the scenes, and just like anything, it takes a village to make this work. So I want to thank again Mindy Driscoll, Pam Davis, Ted Greiner, Bridget Litweiler, Dawn Andrag, Shauna Siren, Madison Sheets, Kevin Schultz, and Todd Schmitz for helping. If there's anybody that I forgot, I apologize. But again, if you have a chance to thank these people, certainly do, because it takes a lot of people to make a good show. Again, we want to thank Federation Brank for the t-shirts that they give. But if you notice in the ring, we also have some gray shirts being worn. The gray shirts are signifying that these are our 2023 seniors. Then this will be their last show. In the ring, we have Grace Coble and one of the Waters girls, Caitlin Waters. So Caitlin and Grace in the gray shirts.
The ewe that surfaces, again, in my mind, is another handy class winner. She comes out here the best in terms of her underlying balance. From her flank back to her hindgut, it's a perfect sweep all the way down, and then yet a big-footed, stout-featured ewe that grabs the best. And from a conformation standpoint, she's the best there in terms of her progression of width and the most athletic there in terms of her skeleton. Congratulations, young lady. Maybe gets a shade closer between 2 and 3. Yet I'll side with the ewe who's better there in terms of her back shape, one who's better in terms of her progression of width, one who's square there in terms of her upper pin set, and yet still gets out with more flex, more go, more comfort there in terms of her hind leg, a ewe that ties her neck high out of the top of her shoulder. Now with that, she maybe just isn't the best there in relation to the class winner in terms of her rear rib and flank, maybe gets more erect in terms of her spine, and maybe just doesn't want to have the same kind of balance there in terms of her top line, but still a quality ewe for 2. Ewe that comes out here in 3 screams maternal. Love this thing's body shape, love how sappy she is back through her rear rib and flank, and the young lady still does a tremendous job getting this one stuck. Set this one into motion, and that's maybe where things get a little bit dicey. She wants to dish out there in terms of her loin and become more erect about her tail head. Maybe wants to have just a bit more extra set there in terms of her hock and pull it in underneath of herself, but still a quality ewe in here for 3. Sheep that comes out here next is tremendous there in terms of its skin and its touch. This one reads to me like a generator there in terms of her muscularity, one who's very good there in the progression of her width, and bubbly and oopty there in terms of her rear view. But with that, maybe just want to change her there in terms of her rear skeleton. She wants to get a bit outside of herself, wants to pressurize unevenly on her rear toe and push her hock outside of her body wall. Sheep that comes next. Nothing wrong with this one from a basic standpoint, just in terms of foot size and feature. One who comes together with silhouette and pattern, doesn't just maybe hit me as overwhelming in terms of her muscularity, doesn't hit me just as opened up about her cage. Sheep that rounds out the class. Loose structured and good built. With that, maybe just needs to be altered there in terms of her show ring look. Maybe just want to get that one an extra shot of foot size and feature as we make mating decisions. Congratulations, awesome class.
Winning our second class of black-faced commercial breeding ewes was Ella Greiner with second place of Caitlin Waters. So in your program, going down, it should be 2, 6, 4, 3, 5, 1. In this class, you see Caitlin Waters wearing a gray shirt because that signifies that she's a 2023 graduate. But also in the ring is Caden Sprouse, who is showing through FFA, so he does not have a gray shirt, but he is also a 2023 graduating senior. So let's give our graduating seniors a round of applause and thank them for all their years of being a 4-H'er or FFA.
Class winner out here that comes out here and simply puts the most positive attributes together. One who's the best there in terms of its proportions, its balance, and its symmetry, and yet still the most athletic creature out here, who's massive and fuzzy there in terms of its legs, the best there and most genuine there in terms of its full rib shape and the turn to its upper cage. Again, like that sheep quite a bit. She maybe gets a bit closer between 2 and 3. In my mind, the ewe who's more shapely, the ewe who's more honest there from a composition standpoint is the young ladies that comes out here in 2. Skinny in terms of her neck and ties it high above the apex of her blade. That's a ewe who gets out here and is so good there in terms of her touch and her tone out of the backside of her shoulder. Yet of the pair, I think she's better there in terms of the way that her breastplate and chest sit up in her. Now get to the rear half of her body. I'd like to knock her down in her spine, square her up in her edge to her loin, and open her up about her upper pin set with that. Want to pull that one down in terms of her rear rib and flank, but the front half of that one's body is very intriguing. Ewe that comes out here in 3, better there in terms of its lower body balance and its mid rib. One who's better back through its rear rib and flank, and yet stouter there in terms of its ankle with that. That ewe needs altered there in terms of where her breastplate and chest floor sit. That's a longer bladed, deeper chested ewe who just reads a bit generic there from the side. Sheep that comes out next is actually surprising when you step in behind the lineup, because that one's as wide across the plane of its stifle as any of them out here with that. That sheep is flatter there in terms of its body shape and doesn't cock off with the same kind of look from the side. Ewe that rounds out the class from a basic standpoint is a very good project for the young individual, but with that doesn't have the same kind of show ring look and finesse as those above it. Awesome job. Congrats.
Winning that class was Austin Black, followed by Caitlin Waters. So going down in your program, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. We will now be bringing all of our champion and reserve from each class back out to get a champion and reserve blackface commercial breeding ewe lamb. The champion banner for this class is sponsored by the Bill Andreg family, and the reserve is sponsored by Hunter Schultz and Haley Schultz. Again, we want to thank all the people that donate to get for the banners and other awards. While we're waiting on this, I do want to thank the Washington County Fair Board Association for the new roof this year on our sheep barn. Make sure that you notice, it looks wonderful. Some of the animals for today's show will be sold in the livestock auction Friday. Anyone from the community is welcome to come and buy. The auction starts Friday at 8:30. And the other thing to remember is the Clover Kids Sheep Show will immediately follow this show. Clover Kids participants in that class should get their show number from the extension office. So immediately following this will be our Clover Kids Sheep Show.
Here.
We have new people around the ring. I want to talk about our judge. It's Nate Berkshire. He's currently living in Illinois, but originally grew up in California. He graduated from Western Illinois University, and next year will be coaching the University of Illinois judging team. So we want to welcome Nate to Washington, Iowa.
Big round of applause for all of the Blackface U exhibitors. Again, I think it's important to understand that not every day do you have a set of ewes out here that have such quality, have such parts and pieces. And when I wake up every time I judge a county fair, there's always that thought in the back of my mind. Am I going to have to search for the quality, or is the quality going to come, and is it going to hit me hard? And with that, the quality's out here. It's hitting me hard. There's stuff out here that I'd love to emulate within my own set. And what I think is so unique about these ewes out here, yes, they have tremendous value within the show ring. Yes, it's awesome to see these things out here just really, really high presented, but it's even more cool to think about what these things represent from a generating aspect, what the weathers that they're going to make, and what the champions in the future will look like, and what they'll hold for the future as well. There's two of them out here that really hit me hard. I'm not a gambler. I have no poker face. I had them walk again, and with that, I'm going to give them one last little look. I'm going to get us a champion. Thank you very much, and big round of applause for these exhibitors again.
Our champion Blackface Commercial U was shown by Garrett Greiner, with the reserve shown by Ella Greiner. Again, those sponsors for the banners were the Bill Andrake family and Hunter Schultz and Haley Schultz. In the ring is our commercial breeding yearling ewe class.
3 high-quality yearling ewe entries, and yet for me, the young man's white ewe that surfaces does so rather handily. In relation to her breed, I love this one's proportions, her balance, her next level truly, and yet she's still, from a composition standpoint, one of the superior sheep out here. She's fresh there in terms of her upper back shape, even though she's got just a little bit of bark there in terms of her forerib. One who comes out here and is still the most athletic in terms of her lower skeleton. She's the best at where she sets her feet down as they meet the surface. Young man, congratulations. Now, the ewe that comes out here in 2, tremendous generating potential from a muscularity aspect. Round body, big in terms of its back, opened up about its upper hip, and yet big in terms of its stifle and where that sits. In relation to the ewe ahead of it, that ewe just needs to be better there in terms of her lower body. She set her into motion. She gets a bit lower there in terms of her shoulder. Just want to see that ewe come together with more symmetry there from the side. Ewe that comes out next. Love this one in terms of her flank line. Get off to the side, and her underline balance is truly as good as any of them. Love this thing skinny, long, and attractive neck, and yet this one is still stout-featured and big-footed there at the surface with that. This ewe poses the most structural discrepancies as we get him out here. Rises in her spine and wants to round out of her hip. Want to make sure that one's better there in terms of her ankle, but very nice class. Congrats.
In our commercial breeding yearling ewe class, there was only 3 in the class, so the winner is considered the champion, which is Caden Houston, and our reserve will be Hunter Barnes. Those banners, again, were sponsored, the champion by the Bill Andrig family, and the reserve by Ron and Louise Schmidt's family. So all the winners in each class then will be brought back so we can give a grand champion and reserve breeding animal. The champion in reserve in this will be given a banner as well as a buckle. The banner for the champion is sponsored by the Sprouse Family Club Lambs and the buckle by Griner Club Lambs. The reserve by Premier Supplies LLC, and again the buckle or canvas bag by Griner Club Lambs.
Big round of applause for all the ewe exhibitors, not just those out here, but anyone who exhibited within the ewe show. Again, I said it in the blackface drive, and I'll say it again. Tremendously high-quality set of females out here, and I've been blown away so far. I can only hope that the remainder of the day keeps at the same rate, the same pace, because, man, it's coming out here, and these things are built for speed. They're awfully, awfully good. With that, I think my decision out here is pretty clear-cut. And with that, I think there's 2 of them out here that just scream quality. They garner your attention from a presentation, a hard-to-make pieces standpoint. They, to me, are the closest to which we're trying to emulate within the industry. And with that, I think that these have the ability to be competitive beyond the county fair, maybe even beyond the state fair, and maybe even at a national level very high quality stock, and I'm very, very happy to have two of them out here that emulate what I'm looking for. With that, those two out of your black-face division will be your champion and your reserve. Congratulate them.
No. We just had a moment of panic because we do the top 5 on this, so that's why the others are out here, and we're making the judge work hard today to do 3, 4, and 5.
Excuse me on that. I messed up there, and with that, I'm ultra excited to pick 5 because it just allows me the ability to keep putting the quality ones out here within give them just a bit of recognition. So with that, I'm going to go out here and show you the remainder of the ones that I like. Thank you very much.
All right, so our champion was Garrett Greiner for the Supreme Breeding Sheep. The reserve was Ella Greiner, followed by 3rd place Austin Black, 4th place Adeline Houston, and 5th grade Caden Houston. We're going to take just a slight break before the market show. So hang tight for just a couple of minutes. To explain what will happen next, our next class will be the production lamb class. The exhibitors will bring their animal in with them. They will be placed and be given ribbons and such. And then those same 4 exhibitors actually had them scanned. So then we will tell you how the scan came out, and it might be the same, it might be different. They will get ribbons for that. And then we will be followed by the production lamb class, or top rated gains, I should say. So that's going to be our next 3 things that are going to happen. While we have a minute, let me tell you about our royalty that's sitting here in the ring. Our 2023 Washington County Fair Queen is Taylor Bartholomew. She's the daughter of Scott and Michelle Bartholomew. Next year, she will be a senior at Washington High School, and she is in the Franklin Cubs 4-H Club. Followed by Miss Congeniality, which is Greta Siren. Greta is the daughter of Catherine and Jason Siren. Next year, she will be a senior at Mid-Prairie, and she represents both the Mid-Prairie FFA and the Dutch Creek Flyers. So thank you, girls, and let's give them a round of applause.
We get into this division, I think it's ultra cool to blend phenotype with performance, rate of gain, and then yet still going to have a carcass contest after this. And to me, the sheep that comes out and hits me the highest quality is the young lady's speckle-eared wether that surfaces. Unrivaled in proportions and balance, comes the whitest in his chest and knee, and that lays the foundation for him to work as much spread and volume up high as any of them, while still being good there in terms of his handle, his touch, and his tone. Caps it all off with a beautiful hind leg. Congratulations, young lady. No doubt, a tighter hided, thinner skinned sheep comes out here into ultra shapely and high cutability there in terms of its type and kind. Love this one in terms of its extension and length of body, and yet still a sheep that's good there in terms of its structural integrity. A sheep that offers some look there from the side. In relation to the young ladies ahead of you, this one's just a bit more concave there in terms of its body shape and its forerib. Maybe just want to open that sheep up and make it wider skeleton. No doubt the fastest growing lamb comes out next, and stepping behind this one, I'm surprised at how big and opened up he is in terms of his upper pin set and how square he is down to the surface. Think that sheep is ultra good there in terms of his center body, but for me just gets a bit off there in terms of his proportions and balance from the side. Still a high quality sheep, a 0.8 rounding out the class in terms of rate of gain, and man, that's awfully good, especially in modern sheep. With that sheep is ultra good in terms of its cage. That's a practical, high-performing kind of a wether who's ultra good in covering the basic fundamentals of a market sheep. Plenty of spread and volume up high. For me, he reads the most generic from the side, and I'd like to hit him with an extra shot of foot size and feature, but a very high-quality class. Please put your hands together for these awesome showmen.
Okay, winning the production class non-scan is Adeline Houston. Reserve is Caitlin Waters. Now, the lamb carcass scan results. Our champion is actually Ashton Thomas. His lamb, let's see, had an average daily gain of 1.07 pounds a day. The reserve would be Hunter Barnes with his lamb with a rated gain of 0.79. So everybody's a winner in this class on something. Good job. Now for our top 10 rate of gain. The exhibitors will be coming in without the lambs. I forgot to mention for the production lamb class, banners were sponsored by Christine Bernie Doonan and Cody and Chelsea Branstad, as well as Ron and Louise Schmidt's family. For our top 10 rate of gain, our champion this year is Ashton Thomas, representing the Kyoto FFA. Again, has had a rate of 1.07 pounds. Ashton, go ahead and step forward. Our second place is Destiny Boone. Her lamb had a 0.86 gain. Reserve Destiny Boone. From there, we had Hunter Barnes with a 0.79 rate of gain. Bryn Conrad, 0.77. Morgan Lichty, 0.75. Destiny Boone, 0.7. Grace Coble, 0.68. Emerson Skransky had 2 with a 0.68, 0.66. Ashton Thomas had another lamb that had a 0.63 gain, as well as Adeline Houston with a 0.63 gain. And our last two was Ella Lay with a 0.62 and Kaden Houston with a 0.62 rate of gain. That's awesome rate of gain. Wonderful job, guys. Our rate of gain banners were sponsored by Jean and Randy Weir, as well as Kevin and Danielle Schultz. The top 5 Get Money Awards, and those were sponsored by Triple D Farms, Steve and Pam Davis family. This is a good time to mention all of the helpers that make this show happen. In the ring, we have Mindy Driscoll, as well as our project manager, Bridget Niebel, and Kevin Schultz is also helping. We have Pam Davis over in the barn, Ted Greiner, Dawn Andrade, Shauna Siren, Madison Sheets, and Todd Schmitz. It takes a lot of people to help this go or to make the show run smoothly. Since we only have one class of Dorset Market lambs, the winner of this class is considered the champion. The banner is sponsored by the Jeff Sprouse family, and the reserve in this class banner is sponsored by Ron and Louise Schmidt's family.
One that comes out here and wins rather handily, in my opinion. That's a great first impression sheep who comes out here and he just hits you so good from a presentation standpoint of foot size and feature. He's the only one out here that combines real roundness of body with genuine hard muscle shape that progresses in the right kind of way. And then he sets off to the side. I think this one is really unique there in terms of his look for his breed. Congratulations, young man. I like that sheep a lot. It gets closer between 2 and 3 in my mind. Yeah, I'll side with the rounder cage, wider skeleton sheep, who's bigger there in terms of its upper pin set and wider across the plane of its stifle. I think this sheep, too, is just a shot more genuine there in terms of his skeletal width as he comes directly at you. Now, in relation to the sheep ahead of him, the sheep is plenty deep there in terms of his chest. Maybe wants to deviate there in terms of his loin, but with that, still a high-quality, round-bodied sheep. The shapely, high-cut ability sheep that comes out next in 3. Long-bodied, extended, high-performing kind of a sheep that grabs with touch and tone out of the backside of his blade in relation to the one ahead of him. This one doesn't have the same kind of progression of width. Maybe for as big as that one is in terms of its back, it wants to funnel there out of its pin set, want to pull that one down on its rear rib and supply it with more foot size and feature at the surface. Gets close again between the 2 sheep that round out the class. I side with the one who's better in terms of its skin, one who's silky there in terms of its hide, and yet still rounder in its full rib, better in terms of its lower body and the usage of its hind leg. Young man's that rounds out the class, no doubt is bigger in pin than the one ahead of it, no doubt is just as shapely and big back. With that sheep needs altered in terms of its underlying balance. Want to see that sheep lengthened and leveled out of its hip with just a bit more squareness and flex to its hind leg. But awesome job, congratulations. Very good set of Dorsets.
champion in that class was Austin Black. Reserve was Carson Stransky. We now have our class of hair market sheep. And again, the winner is considered a champion, second place a reserve. Those banners are sponsored by Weir Farm Supply and Ron and Louise Schmidt's family.
It's not every day that I get to judge hair sheep, so when I do, I like to make it ultra fun because I think these are neat little critters out here. And for me, the young ladies that surfaces is awfully unique there from the side. Tall-shouldered and attractive, short and shallow in terms of its blade and chest, dead level in its top line, and yet of those out here, this one's the most athletic, the best in terms of the hinge and set to that one's hind leg, and the best in the way that that one truly grabs ground. Now, no doubt, is that the widest one? No, it's not. The 1 and 2 actually comes substantially more opened up about its chest and knee, works more spread in dimension out of the back of its blade, ahead of a broader hip and a wider plane of the stifle. With that sheep maybe just doesn't have the same kind of look, the same kind of finesse from the side. Maybe one of them that just gets a bit deeper there in terms of its chest, wants to pull its hind leg underneath of itself. Again, a wide, stout, round-bodied sheep that rounds out the class. For me, that sheep needs to be changed in terms of its underlying balance. That sheep's the most cumbersome there in terms of the usage of its hind leg. Awesome class. Big round of applause for him.
Our champion in that class was shown by McKinley Davis, reserved by Javen Davis, and the banners were sponsored by the Weir Farm Supply and Ron and Louise Schmidt's family. We now have our first class of Hampshire market lambs coming in the ring. Coming around the ring, we have our royalty with some more programs. So if you would like a program, wave her down, wave your hand, holler, jump, scream, do something to get her attention.
it's a challenging class with a lot of them up here that differ in terms of their types and their kinds, and you have to lay your priorities where you want to set them. For me, I'm going to side with the look, the extra exotic and unique look of this one, and yet I still think that this wether gets out and grows with more than enough flexibility off either end of his skeleton. From the side, I prefer the way that that one hinges and utilizes his hind leg the best. That's the tallest shoulder-bladed sheep, who's still more than adequate there in terms of his muscularity and rib shape, with the hardest and most aggressive touch and tone. The young lady that comes out here in two brings one that's ultra proportional, ultra neat there in terms of its balance. One of them who's bar none the best in terms of its rear rib and flank, and subsequently I think that one is really good there in terms of its underline, especially for being a bit of a longer bladed sheep. That sheep is very good there in terms of its foot size and feature, but in comparison to the sheep above, that sheep is just a bit flatter in terms of its forerib. It wants to come up in its spine and drop in terms of its loin. I want to see that sheep just lead me a bit broader there in terms of its upper pin set. That's where the story changes with the young lady in three. Bar none, this is the genuine source of power. That's the roundest body, that's the best forerib, that's the biggest back sheep, who's the broadest in terms of its upper hip, the squarest and best and widest across the plane of its stifle. That one is more than adequate there in terms of its muscularity. With his extra muscularity comes the detriment of its build, though. That sheep drops out in the base of its breastplate. That sheep becomes more vertical about the angle of its shoulder and knee. Need to see that sheep lead me just a bit better in terms of its hind leg. Sheep that comes out next, awesome in terms of its cage, very good in the ditch that runs down its back. One that comes at me square and opened up in terms of its chest. Just wish that it left me with the same kind of view that it came at me. That sheep wants to funnel back into its upper pin set. That sheep drops in terms of its loin and becomes just a bit more cumbersome in terms of its hind leg. Nothing wrong with the sheep that comes out next from a basic fundamental standpoint of being a market lamb. That one has body, that one has build, and that one still has some spread. Just doesn't come with near the same kind of show ring look as those ahead of him. Sheep that comes out next is maybe a shot shapelier, a shot higher cutability. Again, a sheep that's a bit leaner there in terms of its type and its kind. Need to see that sheep squarer and better in terms of its loin. Want to see that sheep just better there in terms of its foot size and feature. Again, basic kind of a market lamb that's high performing and extended. Want to see this one just come with more proportions and terminal shape. Congratulations, awesome job.
Winning that class was Ava Greiner. Second place was Caitlin Waters. So in your program, going down from the top, 6, 5, 7, 2, 4, 1, 3. We now have in our ring the second class of Hampshire Market Lambs. After this class, then we will have our champion and reserve determined. We need to give a big shout out to KCTC for their generous gift of live streaming all the shows. The link is listed on the show program, so you can tune in the rest of this week for any of the other shows. So we appreciate their generous support.
The sheep that surfaces wins rather handily just by being the most current in terms of its show ring look, the freshest and best in terms of its composition and muscularity, the best in terms of its progression of width, the squarest in terms of its hind leg, and yet I still like the way that this thing flexes out of its front end. Still like the way that this one ties its neck high out of the top side of its shoulder. Still a very good sheep to surface. Gets closer between 2 and 3, and I'll side with the wider skeleton, more muscular sheep who's broader in terms of its upper pin set and better through the center portion of its body. No doubt, I think that sheep definitely needs to be squared up in terms of its hind leg construction. That sheep pressurizes unevenly on its rear toe and subsequently pushes its hock outside of its body wall, but still a very wide, good structure, a very wide skeleton kind of a sheep. The sheep that comes out next is better there in terms of his hind leg structure. One of them who's really good there in terms of his shapeliness and squareness there in terms of his upper pin set. For me, that sheep wants to become more erect in terms of its spine. He doesn't want to come with the same kind of three-dimensional rib shape out of the back of his shoulder. Sheep that comes out next, a good skin kind of a market lamb that has touch, has tone. For me, the sheep needs to be better in terms of its underline, but that sheep has more than enough muscularity for me. The one that comes out next, wide, really, really robust in terms of its muscularity, really big in terms of its oopty shape. But as we as breeders start to mess around with the alphabet more, sometimes we can throw a couple extra D's in there, and that kind of looks like what happened here. Sheep that comes out next, high-performing, extended, long body with that. Need to see this sheep be better in terms of its lower body. Need to see this sheep be better in terms of its terminal shape. Awesome job. Congrats.
Winning our second class of Hampshire Market Lambs was Morgan Lichty. Second place was Javen Davis. So they'll now bring those 4 lambs back to determine the champion and reserve Hampshire Market Lambs.
Very good set of Hampshire influence sheep. Big round of applause for all the exhibitors. No disrespect to those who are in the second hole, but to me, I think the high heat comes up at the forefront of these things. And with that, there's a sheep out here that hits me hard from the first class in terms of its body shape. The way that this one is so good there in terms of its underline. I think that from the side, this one is very good there in terms of its flexibility and its looseness there in terms of its skeleton, and has more than enough muscularity. The sheep that comes out of the second class, big, tall, stout. One of them who's really good there in terms of his foot size and his feature, and yet of the pair, he's better there in terms of his loin and his squareness there as they go directly away from me. In comparison, maybe just not the same kind of underline balance, maybe just not the same kind of rear rib and flank. I'm going to take another look at these things and pick you a champion. Awesome job. Congrats.
Our champion Hampshire Market Lamb was shown by Ava Greiner, our reserve by Caitlin Waters. Those banners were sponsored by Fletcher and Mackenzie Flynn family and Ron and Louise Schmidt's family. currently in the ring is our Class 1 of the natural market lambs. I did need to announce that the Journal will be taking pictures of the winners. They're going to try to catch people as they come out of the ring. If not, there'll be a round to try to set up a time to get a picture for the Journal supplement that comes out later. So I apologize for not announcing that sooner, but the Journal guy is supposed to be around taking pictures.
In my mind, the sheep that surfaces is truly an outlier within this set. I think that sheep is an awesome skin kind of a creature that's the best in terms of its muscle, the best in its progression of width, the broadest about its upper hip, and yet that sheep still comes together with balance, still utilizes its hind leg the way in which I want him to. Congratulations, young lady. Maybe gets a shade closer between 2 and 3, yet in these kind of sticky situations, I'm going to revert back to keeping them basic, keeping them terminal, keeping that kind of upper pin set the right kind of way. And the young man sheep that comes out here in 2 most closely emulates my class winner there in terms of his touch and his tone and the way that he grabs there in terms of the squareness there to his loin. Now, that sheep definitely needs to be hit with an extra shot of foot size and feature, set him into motion. He gets quicker and shorter there in terms of his rear step, but that is a heavy muscled, good skin kind of a sheep that comes out here in 2. On the stand, I really like the sheep that comes in 3. I think this one is good there in terms of its underline, short and shallow in terms of its blade, and yet dead level there in terms of its top line. Set this one into motion. He wants to drop down at the base of his chest. He wants to pull up there in his flank, step in behind him. He just doesn't have enough punch, enough gorilla for me from behind, but still a very neat looking sheep that comes out next. The sheep that comes out in here in 4 maybe didn't hit me the hardest when he first came out here. I read him a bit drier there in terms of his rear rib and flank, but the young lady's a tremendous showman and really kind of showed me what I was missing out on. That sheep ties its neck perfectly out of the top side of its shoulder. That's a long level hip sheep that's dead level again in terms terms of its top line, and yet still shapely and expressive in terms of its muscularity. For me, that sheep's rear rib and flank is what limits him. Need to see that sheep better in terms of its lower body balance. Sheep that comes out next actually is better in terms of its lower body, high-performing, extended kind of a weather, but with that, this thing needs to be opened up in his full rib and body shape. Want to see this one leave me with more terminal shape. Whether that rounds out the class is actually one of the better lower body sheep in terms of its rear rib, in terms of its hind gut, but with that, step in behind the sheep. Is he wide enough? For me, he's not. Needs more muscularity, needs more terminal shape, and is at the ground, he needs more feature. Congratulations, awesome job on another very high quality class.
Winning Class 1 of the Natural Market Lamb was Peyton Davis, followed by Anton Larimore.
Again, the sheep that comes out here, in my mind, wins rather handily. The best there in terms of its oopty shape, the best in terms of its chest to flank relation, and with that, the widest, stoutest creature out here, who's the biggest and best there in terms of his foot size and his feature. Now, no doubt, is this sheep the shortest and shallowest bladed within class? No, he's not. But with that, I think that he represents the highest quality creature within this set. Awesome job, congrats. The sheep that comes out here in 2, ultra shapely, ultra shallow, one that's actually the best and squarest there in terms of its loin edge. Really like that sheep in that aspect, and yet that sheep is still really good there in terms of its touch and its tone. With that sheep needs to be pulled down in its rear rib. That sheep needs to be loosened up in its ankle, and I'd like to lengthen and level that one out of its hip. Just give it a more secure rear skeleton. Sheep that comes out next, long-bodied, extended, practical in terms of its type and its kind, but with that sheep just doesn't want to. The sheep doesn't want to react with the lady in the right kind of way. It's hard for me to get good looks. Sheep reads just a bit off there in terms of its balance and unique look from the side. Congrats.
Winning that class was Emma Greiner. Second place was Grace Coble. And you'll notice that Grace Coble is wearing a gray polo shirt, which signifies that she is a 2023 senior. We will now determine the champion and reserve natural market lamb. These banners were sponsored by the Jeff Sprouse family and Ron and Louise Schmidt's family.
Big round of applause for our natural exhibitors. Awesome job. Again, no disrespect, and it's not to say anything against the quality here of the second places, but there's just so much heat up front, and that's what I think is so cool. There's just very high quality sheep represented at the forefront of these lineups, and with that, they're different. I think the sheep that comes out in front, a bit fresher there in terms of the back of his neck, a bit broader and squarer in terms of his upper pin set, has just a bit more oopty there in terms of his lower leg, and yet bigger and stouter there in terms of his rear foot. Sheep that comes out next, bigger there in terms of his back, square there in terms of his loin, and yet still has proportionality, has balance, maybe just doesn't have the same kind of flexibility there in terms of his rear ankle and back leg, but still two very high quality sheep. Again, I'm going to take an extra look. Please give them a big round of applause as we select our champions.
Our champion natural market sheep was shown by Peyton Davis, reserved by Emma Greiner.
The sheep that comes out here, in my mind, from a presentation standpoint, from a current look standpoint, is simply the best. I think that one's big there in terms of its foot size and feature, and although this one isn't the widest, the stoutest, or the burliest, I think this one is the most hydrated there in terms of its muscularity, the best in terms of its skeletal quality there at the surface. No doubt, genuine source of power, who's the heaviest muscled, comes here in two, and yet for this sheep's maturity, that sheep actually still grabs very good there in terms of his body wall, still big backed and still big in terms of its upper pin set. Again, one that we can appreciate there in terms of its feature with that. That sheep just reads plainer and more generic there in terms of its look. Set him into motion. He wants to rise up there in his spine and become more coordinated in terms of the way that he wants to pull his hind leg underneath of himself. The sheep that comes out here in three is better there in terms of his spine than the one ahead of him, one who's long-bodied, one who's long and level there in terms of its upper hip, and then athleticism, angularity are all in check. For me, that sheep needs more balance there from the side there in terms of its lower body. I like to supply that sheep with more foot size, more feature, and then a bigger upper pin set. Sheep that rounds out the class. Man, this one is ultra skinny, but yet I still read a lot of quality there in terms of this one's shortness and shallowness there of its. the way this one ties its neck high out of the top of its shoulder and still has skeletal quality. There's just a lot of time before this one needs to see a show ring. I'd like to see you take that one home and feed on it a bit. Congratulations, awesome job.
The champion speckled market lamb was shown by Austin Black, reserved by Caden Houston. The banners were sponsored by the Sprouse Family Club Lambs and Ron and Louise Schmidt's family. We now have a class of what is called all other breeds.
Balance and motion is what separates these things, and to me, the one who remains the one who better handles its top line there in motion, the longer, leveler hip sheep surfaces, and yet still that sheep from the side reads right there in terms of its proportionality. That sheep utilizes its hind leg in the right way, and yet still has more than enough muscularity for me. Now, no doubt, the sheep in second is more relaxed about the angle of its shoulder and knee. That one grabs and reaches with more flex there, and in terms of its hind leg. But with that, that sheep still needs to be altered there in terms of its structural integrity. That sheep is rounder at the base of its shoulder, and though it grabs more ground, it wants to pull its hip and hind leg underneath of itself. But that's a wide caged kind of a sheep that has more than enough spread and volume up high. Awesome job to those two exhibitors.
Champion in that class was shown by McKinley Davis, reserved by Eliana Hahn. The banners were sponsored by the Sprouse sisters and Ron and Louise Schmidt's family. Coming in the ring is our first class of the Crossbred market lambs. If you are just joining us around the ring, our judge today is Nate Berkshire. He currently lives in Illinois, but originally from California. He graduated from Western Illinois, and next year will be the judging coach at the University of Illinois.
I can get down with the sheep that surfaces here. I mean, this one is awfully good. And again, we talk about not knowing what's going to show up at the county fair. Man, this one's worth the drive. Again, awesome and beautiful there in terms of its underlying balance. Has more than enough muscle with a dead level upper pin set that's big and broad and opened up and square. Sheep gets out and moves like a dream. So athletic in terms of its lower skeleton. Like that one quite a bit. Sheep that comes out here in 2. Man, I think that this one does a lot of things right. I think that this sheep is, again, from a basic standpoint, very good there in terms of its skeletal quality and the way that it grabs ground off either end of its skeleton. With that, step in behind this sheep, and I just don't know if there's the same kind of power, the same kind of punch, maybe just a bit flatter there in terms of its upper hip. Maybe just want to see that sheep come with just a bit more gorilla, a bit more glute shape, but still one that's neat looking from the side, one that's really good there from a structural aspect. On the other side of things, the sheep that comes out here in 2, massive there in terms of its back, beautiful in the turn and shape to its forerib, round and opened up at the top side of its skeleton, and yet big and burly in terms of its upper hip and the way that it leaves me there in terms of its lower leg. For me, that sheep maybe is just a bit deeper there in terms of its breastbone, a bit deeper there in terms of its chest in relation to its flank. Doesn't come with the same kind of extension and look. Sheep that comes out next is awesome in terms of its progression of width. This one's actually really opened up and square in terms of its upper pin set. But for me, again, the sheep just needs to be reconstructed there in terms of its front skeleton. Want to see that one just have a bit more feature and show ring look as we get off to the side. Sheep that comes next, in terms of its top line, the way it ties its neck on top of its shoulder, its foot size and feature is all very good in terms of its silhouette in that aspect. With that, again, to make this one even better in terms of its silhouette, I want to see it better in terms of its lower body shape. Want to see that one rounder, more opened up, and just come with a bit more terminal shape. Ewe lamb that rounds out the class has muscularity. Maybe just want to see that one come with an extra bit of show ring look, but still a ewe lamb that's shapely and open up in terms of her upper pin set. Tremendous class with a tremendous class winner. Congratulations.
Winning that class was Ella Greiner, followed by Caitlin Waters. Connor Lay was not in that class, so going top down, 6, 3, 5, 4, 1, 2. Now coming in the ring is our second class of Crossbred Market Lambs. The Clover Kids Sheep Show will immediately follow our Market Lamb show today. The Clover Kids participating in that class should go get their show numbers over at the extension office. I don't know if you've noticed, but the sheep barn did get a new roof this past year, and so we have to thank the Washington County Fair Board Association for getting the sheep barn a new roof. Make sure you tell those people thank you. They do a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff to make our fair as good as it is.
I applaud the young lady who surfaces out here today because she's brought a plethora of sheep and done a tremendous job getting them stuck. You can tell that she spends a lot of time at home with her projects, and with that, I think that she does a really good job. This sheep comes out here and tandems an immense amount of muscularity with the right kind of balance, the right kind of symmetry there from the side, and yet gets out and goes wide and opened up in terms of its upper pin set, big in terms of its glute, and props up with more than enough balance therein for me. I like that sheep quite a bit. No doubt the sheep that comes out here in 2 is picturesque from the side. Love this one in terms of its pattern and silhouette. That sheep is taller shouldered than my class winner and better in terms of its breastplate. That's a longer, leveler hipped individual who's very good there in terms of its hind leg utilization. For me, stepping behind that sheep, does that sheep just have enough gorilla? Does that sheep just have enough punch and muscularity? Probably not. A bit flatter there in terms of its full rib and center body. Want to see this sheep just a bit more opened up and burly in terms of its muscularity, but still a high quality, neat looking sheep. Maybe the sheep who's the best in terms of its progression of width all day that we've seen. That sheep is monstrous in terms of its back, dead level there in terms of its loin, and big, big, big in terms of its upper pin set. No doubt that sheep has more than enough muscularity and rib cage for me. That sheep, though, is just a bit more moderate there in terms of his type. One that needs more foot size and feature, needs to be reconstructed there off either end of his skeleton to give him a more current and high-quality show ring look. Extended kind of a sheep that's really good skin comes out next, and yet still loose there in terms of his skeleton and angular off either end, but with that needs more muscularity, needs more cage. Similar story to the sheep that comes out next. Maybe even bigger there in terms of his foot size at the ground, maybe a shot square there in terms of his upper pin set, but again, we still need to have more muscularity, more show ring look, and more with the skeleton. Awesome job, congratulations.
Winning that class was Caitlin Waters, followed by Ava Greiner. We will now have our Class 3 of Crossbred Market Lambs.
Again, the young lady brings out a sheep that's just so good there in terms of combining a lot of positive attributes together. Again, more than adequate there in terms of proportionality, balance, and muscle. And yet this one's the best moving of the group out here. The most angular off either end of his skeleton and the loosest there in terms of his lower joint work. Love the way that this thing ties his neck out of the top side of his shoulder and yet still comes at you with more than enough width. The skeleton, like that sheep quite good. I want to make the call that the sheep out here in second is a build sheep, is a look sheep. I think that sheep is shallow. I think that sheep is really good skinned, and I think that with that he's got muscularity, but I struggle to call him the build sheep because his front skeleton needs completely rearranged. That sheep becomes more vertical about the angle of his shoulder and knee. Subsequently, he can't tie his neck high out of the top side of his shoulder, but from that one's blade back, I like a lot of things about that sheep. The sheep that comes out next, wide, stout, burly, moderate, so good there in terms of its cage. No doubt the genuine source of muscularity and power within this class, and he comes at you as open about his chest and knee as any of them. My thing about that is that sheep just reads a bit more generic, a bit more forgettable there in terms of his look. Want to see that sheep better in terms of the fuzz and the strength there to his ankle. Sheep that comes out next, high-performing, extended kind of good stock that still has feature, still has foot size down low, and from the side I really like this weather. Stepping behind him, doesn't have enough gorilla, doesn't have enough grizzly in him. Want to see that one just come with more cage, more roundness of body, more upper pin set as we get off of him. The sheep that comes out next, blue weather that has proportions and balance there from the side, like the sheep when he's set up with that. I think that sheep works as much spread and volume up high as anything, but I need to see the sheep be better in terms of its progression of width. Though this one has so much dimension out of the backside of its blade, she wants to funnel there in terms of her upper hip. Maybe just, again, needs to be rearranged there in terms of the angle of her shoulder and knee. Nothing wrong with this one from a basic fundamental market lamb standpoint. Like this one's white feature and yet still like this one's extension. Again, as we've said throughout the day, I just need these sheep to come with more muscularity, come with more unique and exotic look. Awesome job. Congratulations.
Winning our third class of Crossbred Market Lambs was Morgan Lichty, followed by Caden Sprouse. We will now be bringing the winners and second place of the last three classes out to determine a champion Crossbred Market Lamb. You will see out here in the ring that there are some people with gray polos on. They are our 2023 graduating seniors. We have out here Caitlin Waters, Jenna Waters, and Caden Sprouse, who has an FFA shirt on, but we know he is a senior. So let's give those people a round of applause as they they round out their 4-H career.
Wow, what a crossbred show. Big round of applause for all the exhibitors. put a lot of miles on in the spring looking for sheep, and with that, you always try and find the exotic ones. You try and find the ones that are the hardest to make, the ones that, you wake up in the morning and the first one you look at, just got to make sure that one's doing all right. That one's eating its feed, that one's doing okay, and the ones that you're just the most pumped up to get out in the ring. With that, there's one of them out here. And with that, I think that it maybe gets a shade closer between the reserve. With that, I'm going to go out here and show you the one I like. I'm ultra pumped up right now. Sorry for being just a bit choppy. Awesome job. Congrats.
Our champion crossbred market lamb was shown by Ella Greiner and reserved by Caitlin Waters. The banners were sponsored by the Sprouse sisters and Ron and Louise Schmidt's family. So now we will bring all of our first and second place lambs back from all the various classes to get our grand champion market lamb. We will determine a champion and reserve, and then we will go down 8 more places. So we will place the top 10 market lambs. Sponsoring all of these awards, there are a lot of people that need to be given recognition. The champion for this will be sponsored by the Pat Greiner family, as well as the cash, and they'll be getting a buckle by the Greiner Club Lambs. The reserve banner is sponsored by the Farmers Co-op from Kyoto and Amesworth, as well as the cash prize, and the reserve will be getting a canvas bag that's given by Greiner Club Lambs. The rest of it is all cash prizes donated by the Farmers Co-op of Kyoto and Amesworth, Jeff Sprouse, KDK Sales, Greg and Heather Koch, Perry Mutual Insurance, Don Lindhart, and Farm and Home Mutual Insurance, Nancy Wood. So a lot of people sponsoring a lot of wonderful things for these 4-H'ers. We have currently in the ring all of our champions from all the various classes. We're now bringing out the reserves. The judge is the winner.
If you guys hadn't figured out by now, I'm also a professional sheep catcher when I'm not judging stuff. That being said, again, big round of applause, not only for the exhibitors out here, but for anyone who exhibited a sheep today. I'm not going to get out here and have some big, long, drawn-out speech. I have no soapbox to stand on. I'm 22 years old. I got a lot of life to learn and a lot of life to live. And with that, I am going to say just a couple of words. I was sitting at a table last night talking to a couple of my buddies, and with that, there was a little 8-year-old kid. He's at football camp. And the first thing they told us in football camp was that if your dreams don't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough. I thought, wow, what inspiration from an 8-year-old. And with that, I 100% agree with him and his football coach that if your dreams aren't big enough, and if they don't kind of get you scared, if they don't make you kind of shake and quiver a little bit, then they're not big enough. And I think that was I thought that was pretty cool. With that, I'm going to tell all the exhibitors out here that this is an elitist activity, and be very thankful for everyone that helps you out. Be thankful to your parents. Be thankful for the crew that puts this on. Be thankful to God and all the people that help you get along the way, because this can be taken away from you just as quickly as you can win a buckle or as quickly as you can be last in class. I mean, this is truly something that is it's a right, and it can be taken away just as quickly as it's given. With that, I'm going to put the mic down. Ultra pumped up on this set. As I pick them, I want a big round of applause for those who are going to be your top 10. Awesome job.
All right, I believe we got this right. Our grand champion was shown by Ella Greiner, and then our reserve by Ava Greiner. Going down from there, third place was Caitlin Waters, and the fourth place lamb we believe was also Caitlin Waters. Fifth place, Peyton Davis. Sixth, Austin Black. Then Emma Greiner, Morgan Nafsinger, Adeline Houston, and McKinley Davis. That is your top 10. Give them a round of applause. People from the Journal will be taking pictures after showmanship. He's going back and forth between here and the horse show, so winners will get their pictures taken after showmanship.
Knock one out of the park with KCTC's Arlo security cameras. Strike out intruders by receiving instant alerts when Arlo detects motion or sound. View live video and playback recorded footage from anywhere. Packages start at $14.95 a month with no upfront camera cost. We install your cameras and provide 24/7 support. It's time to play ball and contact KCTC today.
Javen. Well, no, McKinley. The next class we have coming in the ring is a pair of lamb class. This is a new class that has been added. Basically, the exhibitor possibly showed these as individuals. They have similar characteristics, similar weight, and they're now showing them as a pair. For all of this class, you have the exhibitor, and then they will have a friend or somebody else helping them show the second lamb. And we kind of had an unfortunate circumstance with a lamb during weigh-in. And so As they come into the ring, I want to read a thank you. Said the Eldridge family would like to thank the Davis family for allowing their daughter, Kaylin, to help exhibit a lamb during this class. Due to unfortunate circumstances, she was not able to exhibit her lamb this year. So thank you, the Davis family, for showing another family the meaning of the 4 H's: head, heart, hands, and health. There will be a champion in reserve for this new pair of lamb class. The banners are sponsored by Jim and Mary Niebel family and Jason and Bridget Litweiler.
Get our pairs out here, and the pair that surfaces are both very high quality sheep that are consistent in terms of their type and their kind. They have foot size, they have feature, they have muscularity and body shape, and yet still prop up from the side with proportions and balance. Again, kind of a similar story for the sheep that come out here too. Moderate, round-bodied sheep that are big and oopty in terms of their lower stifle shape. Some sheep that come out here with big, massive feet that maybe just don't have the same kind of look as those ahead of them. Sheep that come out next, again, type and kind are very good. Both have good progressions of width. They're both good there in terms of their underlying quality and balance. Practical, moderate kind of a sheep that both represent market lamb fundamentals to a T. Sheep that come out next, both high quality individuals, just very different there in terms of their type and their kind. Young ladies blue ewe is shapely and really, really attractive. Young ladies white ewe maybe just has a bit more body shape, a bit more mass up high, maybe it just doesn't come with the same kind of look. Sheep that round out the class, different there in terms of their type and their kind, but they're both high performing, extended, big kind of a sheep. Maybe just different there in terms of their types. Young ladies black sheep, big and stout in terms of its feature, good there in terms of its underline and muscularity. Young ladies white sheep, maybe just not as opened up there in terms of its upper hip. Maybe want to change that one in its underline and supply it with more feature. Awesome job to all those who showed pairs. Congratulations.
Our champion pair of lambs was shown by Morgan Lichty, followed by Javen Davis. We will now begin the showmanship classes. Our first class will be the Top Gun showmanship class. This class is unique because it is the winners over the past that have won their particular age division. Once you win your age division, then you go into the Top Gun class. So our Top Gun class will be Emma Greiner, Garrett Greiner, Greta Siren, and Caitlin Waters. But Greta will not be in it because Greta is our Miss Congeniality and did not show this year. How the Top Gun works is, for example, Emma Greiner won as a junior. Once she would go to the intermediate level, then she would go back in with the regular showman. So you're only in the Top Gun as long as you are in your age division. I have at the table a phone that was left in the women's bathroom south of the show ring. So if you or know of somebody who lost a phone, I have it.
3 high-quality showmen out here, and they're different in terms of their types and their kinds and the way in which they get these animals presented and stuck. Yet for me, the young man just does the most consistent job of giving me high-quality looks of his sheep. Get your hands on that one. That one always has the perfect push, the perfect drive. That sheep's not overdriving to the point where it wants to drop out of the base of its shoulder, and with that, that sheep naturally maybe wants to drop there in terms of her loin. I think the young man does a nice job of attempting to manage that, and with that, he's just the best there in terms of his body language and facial feature as well. Congratulations. Gets a bit closer between 2 and 3, yet for me, the young lady who's better at getting her sheep set square on all 4 corners is the young lady who with her ewe lamb. I think that she does a really good job by keeping this one's head and neck cranked above the apex of its blade, does a really good job by keeping this one maintained and level there in terms of its top line. Now, as I get critical on you, I maybe want you to take that one's front feet and maybe get it just a bit more underneath that sheep. That sheep maybe wants to overstretch at times, and that throws off its underlying balance. I think we do that, we can definitely move up a spot. Young lady that comes out next maybe gets as much of a push and a drive and a brace out of any of them. I think the way that she utilizes the inner portion of her leg into that one's breastplate is very, very good, and yet still, you can tell that she spent so much time at home just in the way that that one is presented from a skin and a foot size and shag standpoint. With that, we needed to take that one's neck and push it beyond the apex of that one's shoulder. We need to keep that one leveler there in terms of its top line, but 3 very high quality showmen. Big round of applause for all of them.
Winner of our Top Gun showman was Garrett Greiner. We will now be doing the senior showmanship. The Clover Kids Sheep Show will be immediately following all the showmanship classes. So the participants need to go get their show number from the extension office. So if you're a Clover kid and you don't have your show number yet, please go over to the extension office and get one.
a showman that in my mind wins rather handily, and I think that she just comes out here with such an advantage from a presentation standpoint in terms of skin and having worked this lamb's leg hair and wool and really just being out here. She's just so smooth and elegant there in terms of her movement, always has that sheepset square on all four corners, and yet still gets a drive. She's never trying to do too much. She always knows exactly where I'm at, and she maneuvers around the sheep just the best of anyone out here in relation to her contemporaries. Young lady does a tremendous job. Maybe gets a shot closer between 2 and 3 in my mind. Yeah, and I'll side with the young lady who gets better push and drive out of that sheep. She really maximizes the way in which she pushes that sheep there with the base of her leg into that one's breastplate. And I think that she does a really good job of keeping that one's head and neck up high, especially while keeping that one's top line right. Now, with that sheep pushing, maybe at times he wants to over push and overdrive and maybe get his rear feet just a bit further behind him. That's where I'd like to maybe see things change. Think that sheep maybe at times wants to offset his rear feet, and that's where we need to continue to move on. The young man that comes out next, set perfectly square on all four corners and all the time. And again, you can tell that he spent a tremendous amount of time at home working on this one's leg shag and feature. I think that as they watch that sheep maneuver around the ring with the young man, he too has done a really good job of keeping that sheep moving. But with that, I maybe just want to see a bit more drive out of that sheep. That sheep maybe just isn't giving you 100% in terms of where that sheep wants to push and go off of. And subsequently, when I go to handle that sheep, she handles softer there in terms of her body and her back shape. Young man that comes out next does a really nice job of keeping this one's head and neck in the right position and keeping that one's spine perfectly flat. Again, a sheep that you can tell has been worked with a lot, but with that, need to see that sheep give more push and more brace. Need to see feet just set a bit square on all four corners. Next two showmen are very similar there in terms of their type and their kind. They're good at getting these sheep to go forward while maintaining their top line balance, but for me, they both need to set their feet just a bit square, and I'd like to see more of a drive, especially there in terms of the way that you utilize your leg to get into those one's breastplates to really maximize a push. Awesome job, though. Congratulations. Big round of applause for all the exhibitors.
All right, our senior showmanship winner was Ava Greiner. Reserve was Kara Longbine. But as far as the premier exhibitor goes, Ava Greiner is also the winner of that for the senior, and our reserve for that was Morgan Nafzinger. For the premier showman, they have to take a test, they do an interview, as well as the live show. So all of that is considered for the premier exhibitor. So Ava Greiner ended up winning both of those. But for the premier, she actually had to take a test and do an interview. We will do the same with the intermediate. There's the showmanship that you see right now, and then we do some figuring as far as test scores and interview for the premier.
No doubt in my mind, the young lady that surfaces here can maybe compete at any level that she wants to, state, county, local, national, whatever she wants to do. Just in their first impression comes out just so intense there in terms of her facial feature and body language, comes out here and gets a perfect stick on this time. Always square there in terms of her foot placement, always manages that one's neck and top line perfectly. Young lady does a tremendous job. That's not anything to take away from the young lady that comes out here in two, because from a presentation standpoint, again, that's a very good skin sheep who's really good there in terms of his foot size and his feature, and that comes through hard work and dedication day in and day out of maintaining that sheep and keeping that sheep good and high quality with that. I think that you do a really good job of getting feet set square, but maybe at times get that sheep's front feet maybe just a bit underneath of himself, and that when he doesn't want to hit me with the same kind of level of proportion and balance. Young lady that comes out next, I applaud you for showing a yearling sheep in a showmanship class. That's maybe not what I'd want to do, but yet you still do a tremendous job of keeping this one's head and neck in the right position. You do a really good job of maintaining this one's top line for the most part, and then that sheep's back feet are always square. Very good job in that facet. Maybe at times that sheep wants to overdrive at the base of its shoulder and become more erect about its spine. Therefore, that sheep wants to offset there in terms of its front feet. That's why you are where you are. Continue to correct that at home, and I think you do definitely move up a couple of spots. Young lady that comes out next, really good in terms of keeping that one square, really good at getting a push and a brace, that when I get my hands on that sheep, there's definitely a curled up muscle shape with that. Maybe get that sheep's front feet just a bit far in front of itself. Maybe that wants to throw off its underline balance ever so slightly. Maybe just get that sheep a bit more at a 90-degree angle in terms of where that front feet sit, and you move up a couple of spaces easily. Congratulations. Young man that comes out next, you can tell he spent a lot of time at home maneuvering around things with these sheep, because they work together so simultaneously as they work around the ring with that. It takes two in this game, and that sheep maybe just doesn't want to work with you as much. That sheep wants to become more erect about its top line and then pull back and not get the same kind of drive and push as those ahead of you. Still a very good job. Sheep that comes out next. Young lady does a really good job of keeping this one's head and neck up, but that sheep just wants to fight her so much. He wants to get out of line and maybe just never set his feet square down there at the surface. Young lady that comes out next does a really good job of maintaining this one's spine, but kind of a similar story. Sheep doesn't want to set its front feet square. Sheep then wants to duck its head down and maybe just not work the same way for the young lady. Young lady with the Dorset that rounds out the class does a really good job of getting a push, but with that sheep wants to overdrive, and it throws off his balance and top line. I never got a very good look at that sheep. Awesome job. Congratulations.
Our champion intermediate showman was Ella Greiner. Our reserve was Morgan Lichty. But in the premier exhibitor, Morgan Lichty would be considered the champion. So Morgan Lichty is the premier exhibitor champion. Reserve would be Adeline Houston for the premier sheep exhibitor. We now have in the ring the junior showmanship. All junior showmen exhibiting in the showmanship class will receive a halter from the family of longtime sheep producer Cleo McCoy. So exhibitors, as you come out of the ring, a McCoy family member will be giving you a sheep halter, which is a very generous donation. Thank you, McCoy family.
Two very good showmen on two very nice blue sheep out here, and it's a differing in terms of, and they differ in terms of the way in which they both get these things stuck, but I both think that they do a very, very high quality job. For me, the young lady that surfaces does the best of getting a push and a drive out here. Again, get your hands on that one, and from a presentation standpoint, the two young ladies differentiate themselves from the remainder of their contemporaries because they're so good there in terms of their skin. They both have foot size and feature, as we talked about, and leg hair that's been worked consistently and repeatedly. And with that, I think the young lady that surfaces just does the best job of keeping that one's head and neck up, keeping that one's spine dead level, and still getting a drive. Young lady, congratulations. On the opposite side of things, a smoother, silkier showman out here in 2 that maybe has a shot more finesse with that. She's probably just at getting that one's feet and legs set on square on all 4 corners, and yet still she keeps that one's head, neck, and spine all in the right position. What separates the group, she maybe just doesn't get as much of a drive and a push there in terms of her leg. I wish she'd take this portion of her leg and just apply it more there into that one's breastplate and really get a push and a drive out of that weather, but still a very high quality showman. Young lady that comes out next with her ewe lamb gets a massive push, a massive drive. Get my hands on that sheep, and that one feels curly and ripped up. And with that, maybe at times that sheep wants to overdrive, and therefore she struggles to get that sheep's head and neck behind the apex of its blade. I think we move that sheep's head and neck placement, and we definitely move up a couple of places. That's where the young man that comes out next is so good, an intense showman there in terms of his facial feature and body language that keeps that one's head and neck up, keeps that one's spine level, and relatively that sheep is typically pretty good set up in terms of its front side. With that sheep maybe wants to get underneath of itself and maybe then becomes a bit more offset there in terms of its hind leg. I think we just continue to work on that at home, and we definitely move up a couple of spaces. Young man that comes out next, man, he's out here smiling, he's out here having fun. He was reserve in his division earlier, and he gave a big old fist pump, and I thought that was awesome. I think it's truly a good thing for kids to have fun in the show ring, and maybe it's not always about being the most intense or the most aggressive. With that, gets a really good brace and a really good drive out of that sheep, maybe just sometimes gets a bit overstretched. Keep working on it at home, I think you move up. Young lady that comes out next, really good there in the basics and the way that sheep maneuvers around the ring with her, just has a bit more harder of a time getting that sheep set up. Young lady that comes out next gets a really good drive. I just think that we need to move your leg from in between that sheep's front legs to around that sheep's front skeleton, and I think we move up a couple of places. Young lady that rounds out the class. Nothing wrong from a basic standpoint, just like to see her with a bit more finesse. Awesome job, big round of applause for this tremendous group of showmen.
Our champion junior showmanship was won by Peyton Davis. The reserve was McKinley Davis, but our premier sheep exhibitor champion is Eliana Hahn. I forgot to mention all the wonderful people that give donations for all the showmanship. And so it's the Sprouse Family Club Lambs, Garmin Show Supply, Lyle Insurance, Irwin Farms, Phil and Pam Purdock, Animal Health International, Phil and Pam Purdock. So we appreciate all of that. Our next order of business will be the Clover Kids Sheep Show. Washington County has a strong Clover Kid program that serves youth kindergarten through 3rd grade. All 2nd graders are invited to participate in their Clover Kid Sheep Mentoring Program. These experienced 4-H sheep showmen have served as great leaders and will escort their partners in the ring. Thank you to all for participating. We have, as our Clover Kids, Andy Smothers and the mentor, Kira Longbine. Give them a wave. Kira, wave. Yay, Kira. Then we have Aiden Tadlock and Adeline Houston as the mentor. Adeline, give them a wave. Yay. Emerson Flynn has Ava Greiner as her mentor. Yay, Ava, wave. We have Tate McGuire and Garrett Greiner as the mentor. Wave, Garrett, yes. We have Umbrace Udulo as the Clover Kid and Grace Coble as the mentor. We have Tinley Greiner with Ashton Thomas. Yay, Ashton. We have Isabel Beinert and Ella Greiner. We have Lexton Fisher with Caden Houston. Where are they at? There they are. We have Bryson Davis with Caitlin Waters. Wave. Smile. This isn't so bad, you guys. And Brindley Stout with Emma Greiner. Yay. Brindley's smiling. Everybody likes to hear their name called, so we're going to call up the Clover kids again. We have Andy Smothers, Aiden Tadlock, Emerson Flynn, Tate McGuire, Umbrace, Tenley Griner, Isabel Biner, Lexton Fisher, Bryson Davis, and Brinley Stout. They're showing their stuff.
What did you learn in your project?
How many scoops
How many scoops
they get?
did they get?
2.
Awesome. And what's your name?
And
Awesome. What's your name?
Aiden.
What did you learn on your project? Definitely. Awesome job. What's your name?
I learned how to show sheep better.
What's your name?
Kate.
What'd you learn?
How to hold a sheep.
What's your name?
Embrace.
Nice. What'd you learn?
I learned how to wash and shear the sheep.
Did you shear this sheep?
I did not shear the sheep. I was just showing.
What's your name?
Timber.
What did you learn?
How to brace the sheep.
Oh yeah, you gonna show some sheep this year? What's your name?
Izzy.
What'd you learn?
I learned how to wash sheep.
Did you wash this one?
Yep.
What's your name?
Dexter.
4 pounds a day. Awesome. What's your name?
Bryson.
What'd you learn?
I learned how to tie a box hook and set it up and wash it.
You're doing an awesome job. Congratulations. Last but not least, what is your name?
Finley,
What did you learn?
how to set a sheep.
Yeah, you do an awesome job, okay? Congratulations. Big round of applause for all these exhibitors.
Thanks again to Kira, Adeline, Ava, Garrett, Grace, Ashton, Ella, Kaden, Caitlin, and Emma for giving your time to help these young kids. So I have one more announcement. The journal guy would really like to take a picture. So if if you were a winner and you have not had your picture taken, please go over to the backdrop and they will get your picture taken. Attention in the audience, the journal person is going to take pictures. So if you are a winner and have not had your picture taken, please go to the 4-H FFA backdrop area and they will get your picture taken.
Knock one out of the park with KCTC's Arlo security cameras. Strike out intruders by receiving instant alerts when Arlo detects motion or sound. View live video and playback recorded footage from anywhere. Packages start at $14.95 a month with no upfront camera cost.